let's go into that for a moment, because you have written on that. I mean, even in your other book on reading well, and you mentioned finding the good life through great books. Let's try to even envision that. Let's imagine that for a moment. How should we envision the good life? And then from that, I think we can see how imagination shapes it.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think, one of this is sort of cliche, but I just think it's cliche because it's so powerful, is like that famous quote from C.S. Lewis about the child making mud pies in the slum, who's, isn't enticed by an invitation to a holiday at the sea because he doesn't know what that is, so we're just so like that. We just can't imagine, we aren't capable of imagining beyond what we're presented with. And so that's what books and all art can do for us, is to present us with experiences and capacities and situations and possibilities beyond our finite, limited, human physical experience. And so that expands our imagination, and therefore expands our ability to envision what the good life might constitute. And of course, as Christians, we have a foundation for that laid for us in the Bible. But there's still so many possibilities, even in being a Christian and just being in this world. And so many things that we might encounter that we might not imagine that we would encounter, that literature and art are a way of sort of preparing us for that, even before we encounter them, or they direct us in ways that we might not be directed if just by our own physical geographical surroundings.
Which is what Guy mentions in his book, Lifting the Veil, where he talks about how beauty, when we see beauty, it evokes longing, the idea for more, wanting more. And even I remember talking with Jeremy Treat. He wrote a book on kingdom, and he mentioned how we can have beauty poverty. And you see this, actually, I remember Andrew Peterson writing in his book about, I think it was Garden of the Gods, something along that line. But he's telling a story, I think it was with Wendell Berry. And he's looking at how certain cities were constructed as just these steel or concrete buildings without any type of plant or flora and fauna anywhere, and how crime was so rampant. But when they planted trees, it actually caused it to go down, because there's something about the human as part of being God's image bearers, that we have that desire. You say that, and this is what we're talking about here, is kind of stoking that desire for the kingdom rather than just cutting it off and being so narrowly focused, because really that imagination is to be in service to God, to show the love of God in the fulfillment. Because even in the Great Commission, and I remember talking with Kelly Kapic about this, Kelly and I were discussing it, and he said one of the things that we're to do is to show a bit what it means to be fully human. And Daniel Strange just wrote an article for the Gospel Coalition and Themelios, and he said, the first millennium was deciding who Jesus is, the second millennium was talking about salvation, and the third millennium is, what does it mean to be human? And we're understanding this full humanity at play, because we're not machines, even though the Industrial Revolution has kind of forced us into that mechanistic nature. But we see a desire for beauty, a desire for rest. This is one of the reasons why pastors are burning out left and right, is they're living out of this social imaginary of this narrow focus, not understanding the purpose of rest and rhythm. And like, as Joseph Pieper talks about, and Alan Noble talks about too, is this idea of leisure. Sorry, I'm preaching.